What's good, everybody? Let's go ahead and cover absolute value. First off, let's go ahead and start with what it is. Absolute value, very simply put, is the absolute value, or the absolute number of units between 0 and any number, irregardless of positive or negative. So for example, the distance between 0 and 3 is 3, but the distance from 0 to -3 is also 3. So the absolute value in both scenarios is 3. And that's going to be key. Okay, because when we're looking at a number such as the absolute value of -4, an absolute value looks like some number or expression in between two little lines. And I think about this like no matter what type of number goes into those bars, it must come out positive. So whether we put a positive number or a negative number or a variable, it must come out positive. And what goes in there will always be made positive at the end. So the absolute value of -4 is going to be 4, positive 4, irregardless of value. But what happens when you have a variable in here? As we've mentioned, if we were to put in x into these absolute value bars, it could not equal -4 because what must come out must be positive. So this right-hand side has to be able to be positive in order for x to actually be true. So this would have no solution. Now, if the other side is a positive number or an expression of some sort, then we know that x is going to equal the positive and negative version of 4 because I could plug in x could equal +4 or x could equal -4. In both cases where x is +4, the absolute value of 4 would equal to 4. And also, if x was -4, the absolute value of -4 would equal 4 as well. Now, what if you have an expression within the absolute value brackets and they're looking for the value of x? Okay. If we have an expression within the absolute value, we first want to get the expression out of the absolute value group by making the opposite side the positive and negative version of itself. So I would have two expressions. I would have x minus 7 equals +2, and I would have x minus 7 equals -2. Then I would add 7 to both sides in both cases, and I would have x equals 9 on my first equation, add 7 to both sides, and I would have x equals 5 for my second equation. And so x would equal 9 and 5. And most commonly for absolute values, there's going to be two solutions because you're going to have your solution where the right side or the other side is a positive version of itself and a solution where the other side is a negative version of itself. But let's say you have a lot more going on, okay? This would be level 3. Typically, you might have a more advanced expression, just a couple more operations that you would have within your absolute value brackets. And maybe the other side is also an expression as opposed to a number. And this is where most students get tricked up, particularly thinking about this other side. So to break this apart in its absolute value, from its absolute value brackets, I'm first going to rewrite the expression 2x minus 25. And I know that's going to equal the positive and negative version of this whole group on the right-hand side, which means that 2x minus 25 is going to equal, distribute the positive, 16 minus x. But if I also distribute the negative, then 2x minus 25 is going to equal -16 plus x, because I would distribute the negative to both the 16 and the -x. Then I can go ahead and solve from here. So I may bring my -25 over by adding 25 to both sides. I get 2x equals 41 minus x. We add the x, we get 3x equals 41. Finally, divide both sides by 3. And for my first solution, x equals 41 divided by 3. Now, for my second solution, I'm going to follow a similar order of operations. To simplify, we're going to add 25 to both sides. We'll add 25 to both sides. That's going to give me 2x equals 9 plus x. Then I'm going to subtract x from both sides. And so x is going to equal 9. And so my two solutions are going to be x equals 41 over 3 and x is going to equal 9. And that's going to be the more complicated way. Pro tip on the more complicated versions: if you get an expression on the other side of the absolute value, do not forget to distribute your negative. Anyway, peace, blessings, and I wish y'all the utmost success.